Cliff, why not just say I have no interest in the Oklahoma job?
Yeah, I just, like I said, we're in season. We're at 9-2. Just not a topic I want to touch on right now.
Back with Charles Robinson. Look, I mean, I've seen the game played. I've been played. So when I first saw this yesterday, this quote-unquote story, I'm like, oh, man, I ain't hating the player, hate the game. I get it, Cliff. Cash in. They just gave Mel Tucker $95 million at Michigan State. Okay? Lincoln Riley just hightailed this at USC. There's a college job open. Cliff Kingsbury still looks like he's in college, for crying out loud. He got 1 year left on his deal. This is what you pay your agent for, to put you in the mix for jobs that you're really not in the mix for, to leverage more money out of your current employer. So I just figured this was a transparent attempt at trying to leverage the situation for his own contract negotiations. Or Charles Robinson, is he looking at that money that they give it out in college saying, you know what? Yeah, I got Kyler Murray here, but I've seen the Cardinals fire a coach after 1 year. The NFL is not for long. I love my career in Arizona, but it depends on how much they're talking. So is this just agent using reporter, or could Cliff Kingsbury actually be a viable candidate at the University of Oklahoma?
It is. I am making $5.5 million a year. Matt Rule is making $8.5 million a year. Coach pay, head coach pay in the NFL is significantly depressed when compared to college head coaching pay at not even the upper reaches now. I mean, just good schools and Power 5 conferences. This is just the market it's gonna catch up. The head coaching market is going to have to catch up to salaries in college. It's weird to say that, but it's the truth. I mean, I think he's making $5.5 million. I think that puts him 11th. 11th. He's almost top 10 at $5.5 million. Like you said, Mel Tucker gets a $95 million 10-year deal. You're going to see Cliff Kingsbury is going to end up eventually getting, unless this just completely falls apart in Arizona, I think you're going to end up seeing him get a new contract and numbers that put him closer to the top 5, which is going to be around that $9 to $10 million a year range, which is, frankly, I think top 10 coaches in the NFL are headed toward $9 to $10 million a year salaries. You're going to see general manager salaries are going to start to rise. All this new money comes in from the television deal, which impacts the salary cap and what player pay will be. It's only a matter of time before NFL head coaches.
Must be nice. Timing is everything. Because you know what he really needs? He really needs another house. He needs to upgrade his career. That's what Cliff Kingsbury really needs.
I mean, and it's so funny. You know, I remember this stood out to me. You guys can relate to this because we all started at smaller newspapers at some point, whether it was for the full-time job or as an intern. But I remember being like a first-year reporter at the Akron Beacon Journal, writing about a Cavaliers player who was only making $500,000. Okay, it's like, wait a minute. What's wrong with this? Like,
okay.
At the time, I was writing.
At the time.
No. Okay.
Listen, but I'm saying, but I was writing the story. I had a blanket wrapped around me because the heat was off. And, you know,
wait.
You probably had a candle.
I have a good story, Michael Smith story here. Okay. Years and years ago, many years ago, after Michael Smith had gone to ESPN, I was up on my, I don't know, it might have been my second or maybe my third contract at Yahoo. And I called Mike and I said, hey, I got to ask you a question. I said, you know, I got this deal on the table. It's a 3-year deal, 4-year deal, whatever the years were at that time. And Mike's like, do you mind if I, you know, like, so what's the number? So I tell him the number and he goes, oh, per year? I was like, no, man, that's for the full 4 years, man. I was like, what are you making at ESPN, bro? I was like, I need to get over and get that TV money. What am I doing?
Perspective, man. Perspective.
I remember I was sitting in my car and I looked at my phone. Like, what is this doing?
You're like, I called for advice, but now I'm thinking about my own career because I know what Michael Smith is making.
Oh,
And,
instant depression.
and what I have pales. Now let me ask you this. Speaking of coaches' salaries, the top of the mountain, Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Now Michael has been trying to lecture me and counsel me on the Patriots and how he tried to tell me many years ago or many months ago that the Patriots are the best team in the AFC.
Last week.
I don't know, or last week. I don't know if they're the best team in the AFC, Charles, but if you assess them, how do you assess the Patriots when you look at them against the Bills, when you look at them against the rest of the AFC, rest of the NFL?
Well, what I like is they're balanced. They're what Buffalo isn't. Okay, so we sit there and we look at Buffalo and we're like, why is this offense a roller coaster? Why is it somewhat dysfunctional right now? I think it's because you look at so much of the offense being loaded onto Josh Allen, so one-sided. But I think the Patriots are the opposite offensively. They're very balanced. They figured out how to run the football. They don't ask Mac Jones to do a ton. And then they lean a lot on a really talented, deep defense that's not only is it deep, but it's smart. And when Bill Belichick has the smartest defenses, he loves it because what does it allow him to do? It allows him to do a lot of different things. He can get a little more complicated with it. And it's not a smart old defense. I mean, there's some youth there that's making big contributions this season. So I think that's what I like about the Patriots. It plays into just basic things that we've seen over the years that work in the NFL. If you can run the ball, if you can play good defense, and you can get some home field advantage in the playoffs, you're generally going to be a team that can make some strides in the postseason. And it took me a while to come around on the Patriots, but as they've stacked up this winning streak, and I've looked at why are they being successful, and realized that a lot of it has to do with that balance on offense and the fact that the defense is a very, very good unit. I'm a buyer. I wish they wouldn't have let go of Stephon Gilmore. I'll be honest with you. I wish they would have figured out a way to keep him in the fold there. But when you compare it to the rest of the AFC, when I watch Lamar Jackson throw 4 interceptions, throw 3 in 3 consecutive drives, and they were all bad interceptions, and then you watch the Browns only turn that into 3 points, the Patriots aren't going to do that. They're going to beat you. Like if Lamar Jackson does that against the Patriots, he's going to lose. The Chargers, I don't know what to think of that team. Like they're all over the place. I don't think you can count on them at all. The Buffalo Bills, again, until they find some element of balance, plus you lose a Tre'Davious White.
Tre'Davious White, yeah.
There's a lot of things that around in the AFC to question, and somehow the Patriots have become a bit of a bedrock in a season that I thought they were at least a year away, if not more.
Yeah. They just handle their business. Simple as that. Going back to that Browns-Ravens game, I beat up on Baker, He is beat up. But, I've said before, for all the commercials he's in, I have a tough time buying him. I'm not alone because another week, another family member getting involved.
Yeah.
First it was Odell Beckham's dad. Then it was Baker's wife. To an extent, she always reposts. And now it's Kareem Hunt's dad getting in on the act. I feel like I've asked you this question before, but Baker, like, what's the internal feeling from the Browns? Like, how does that team, that organization, actually feel about him? Forget what I think or we think on the outside or people's parents think.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the internal vibe about Baker Mayfield, short term and long term?
I think short term, it's especially heading into this bye week. First off, getting things quiet. There's just a lot, like you said, to have Kareem Hunt's dad come out and, the stuff on social media, the organizations wanted to get away from that kind of drama for a long time. The fact that this is now happening again and it's happening surrounding the quarterback, that noise is such a net negative for them that I think they want to take the bye week and settle things down a little bit. Try to figure out what they're going to do on the offensive line with Conklin going down for the remainder of the season. And then figure out fundamentally what are the things that we've done right and how can we lean into this in what is going to be a brutal schedule coming out of the bye. They have a really tough – it's not a single team with a losing record right now. I think the Steelers 5-5-1 are the worst team left heading into the stretch run for them, and which means you're going to play only teams that are fighting for playoff spots. Not a good situation, but I think, short term, it's just now look back at what we did right. Let's lean into that, try to fight and see if we can get into the playoffs. And if they can't, I think then now you have to focus on the long-term answer, which is what are the long-term possibilities out there? Are there going to be quarterbacks on the table who we can potentially trade for? I still think Russell Wilson is a guy that they would look at if Russell Wilson were to become available.
Interesting.
You know, are there options where if there isn't an easy replacement or something that they have to basically completely drive a ton of investment into, is there a middle of the road veteran option out there that they could bring in to at least give themselves an insurance policy in his 5th-year option?
Yeah. They already have
forward?
one. They already had that
Who's
guy,
that?
Case Keenum.
Case
Keenum.
No, I don't.
No?
I think it's more along the lines of I was compared it to when Marcus Mariota went into his 5th-year option with the Tennessee Titans, and they said, let's go get Ryan Tannehill. Maybe that's a bad situation that we can turn around and make it right here if Marcus Mariota doesn't work.
Basically, get somebody else's Baker Mayfield and see if it could be a reclamation project.
Right, and
last time.
And is that Marcus Mariota? Like, is that Mitch Trubisky? Is it
This time you said Russell Wilson. I don't remember you saying that before. The name you said last time, and I'm gonna use it as kind of like a 6 degrees of separation. You mentioned that maybe they inquire about Deshaun Watson. So we were talking about the Dolphins and them surging and Tua's improvement and whether or not that maybe pulls the Dolphins out of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. We'll see about Carolina in the offseason. We'll see about Denver in the offseason. The other team that fascinates me is Philadelphia. Because I was a believer in Jalen Hurts pretty much from day one, up and down this year. Yesterday, I know he throws the 3 picks, but damn it, Jalen Reagor, and I don't mean to pile on the dude, because, everybody has a bad day. Hell, I have a bad day. You know what I mean? But my God, I mean, not one, but 2 opportunities, in spite of those 3 picks, to maybe win that game against the Giants and make the NFC East that much easier. What is the organization's attitude toward Jalen Hurts at this juncture? A lot of football to be played. Do they believe that he's a long-term answer, or are they going to be aggressive in the offseason when it comes to the quarterback position?
I think that they'll be open to looking and seeing what's available in the offseason. I think that it's an organization that is not all the way in on Jalen Hurts, not all the way out on Jalen Hurts. And, I mean, Howie Roseman, the general manager there, his mentality anyway is like, hey, I want to look at everything almost no matter what.
Right.
But I think here's the thing about Hurts, that there's a roller coaster there, and you have to decide, is this a guy who, is he Gardner Minshew, basically? And why the reason why I bring up Gardner Minshew was the kind of guy that when he was a starter in Jacksonville, he could give you games where you're like, maybe he's viable. Like, he can create, he can do this, he can do that. His arm's not great, but, maybe he's good enough to carve out a top 12, top 13, role as a quarterback in the NFL. I think that's sort of the question about Hurts. Is the arm strength enough? Is his ability to function in an offense that isn't 100% derived on, all these RPO looks? Can you get around the corner and develop him to the point where he can be consistent? Or is he going to be like a Minshew where you're like, okay, I could see him a long-term backup who can come in and do things for you? That's a really hard question to answer, particularly if you go into an offseason where what if Deshaun Watson is available and the civil suits and, the grand jury investigation, all these other things are no longer on the table for him. I think if you're the Eagles, you have to look at that, particularly if Watson is staring at Miami and that's not an option anymore. I would think that Philadelphia is one of those teams that has always kind of kept an ear to what's going on with Deshaun Watson. I would expect that to continue.
Sitting there with 3 first-round picks. There's no picks this coming year. They got ammunition.
No question about the ammunition. And by the way, the ammunition, the general manager, and an owner who all are about being aggressive. That's why I think Carolina with David Tepper. Those are the 2 teams where I'm like, you have the stars aligned in terms of all the power brokers are aggressive individuals.
Here's some jaw-dropping numbers from Cowboys Raiders on Thanksgiving, and I wonder which set got your attention. Is it 38 million people who watched that game?
Yeah.
Or was it 28 flags? 28 flags flying, including countless, innumerable pass interference penalties against the Cowboys. So what got your attention more from that game?
Well, look, I guess I've become numb to the figures in terms of the numbers with the NFL and broadcast numbers. I mean, it's the most bulletproof bet, I think, long term in television. So I guess I assume when you can pull in 110, 120 billion dollars in TV rights, you're going to get a lot of eyeballs staring, particularly, by the way, when it's the Raiders and the Cowboys, which have nationwide fan bases. Not a huge surprise for me. It sucked that game was so sloppy, though. And in particular for Dallas, I know Dallas is dealing with a lot of injuries, okay? And I think that plays a big part in that. And particularly skill positions, the players Dak was throwing to, it's not a fully loaded offense right now. But that said, discipline-wise, you would hope that the Dallas Cowboys would be playing better than this right now, particularly with Dan Quinn being really kind of what's been their ace this season as a defensive coordinator. You got to be your discipline's just got to be better than that. And I thought it was far too sloppy of a game against the Raiders, and it makes you a little nervous about. I guess I'd put a lot on injuries, but now I'm like, okay, do I have to start looking at the Cowboys a little bit more closely and feel like maybe I was a little over my skis and how good I felt about that defense, and maybe Randy Gregory coming back and DeMarcus Lawrence and this just kicking it into gear and making them a favorite.
Well, shit, Charles. They got a full-blown COVID outbreak dealing with.
Yeah,
McCarthy's out this Thursday. Yeah. I mean, is this? I'll ask you. This is the last question we got for you. Then we'll let you go. Like from a Cowboys perspective, in particular, COVID outbreak going to cost them their head coach and other staff members this week. Yeah. But even league-wide, as we now have a new coronavirus variant to deal with, we're heading into, the harder winter months, the holidays. I know the protocols get stricter around the league. It just feels like COVID's not done with this league, not by any stretch. It might wreak havoc. Let's not anybody get comfortable with what we think these teams are, what the playoff picture looks like, because it may wreak havoc on the Cowboys as well as the rest of the league in the months of November and December, or the month of December. We're almost through November. Month of December and into January. I
think, it's funny because when we went through this the first time last year, the NFL told teams, look at this like it's an injury. Like treat it like it's an injury. If someone has COVID, you just have to adjust to it just like you would with an injury and move on. Now I think the league actually is doing that, though. I think teams are doing that. Remember, there was a time when if a coach, when Stefanski, couldn't coach because he had COVID, it was unbelievable, stunning. We're like, oh my God, now teams are just sort of like, all right, well, coach has got COVID, we have to adjust. And Dan Quinn, you've got coaching experience, head coaching experience, you know how to handle the week. We're going to elevate you, for this week as the interim, and we'll figure it out. We might be missing a couple assistant coaches. Teams are now just adjusting to it the way that I think the league wanted them to last year. So whether it's players or it's coaches, I think teams have just kind of come to accept that even with the protocols in place, even with, a large portion of the rosters being vaccinated, they're going to deal with players or coaches being lost. Now, what I think is really interesting, we're going to see it in the playoffs. I'm going to call it right now. It's November 29th. Timestamp it. We are going to see either, a coach or a player, somebody key is going to miss a playoff game because of COVID this year. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, brother, man. Well, you stay healthy. Appreciate you. Appreciate the hat. Almost as much as we appreciate the insight. And
it's just for you guys.
Talk to you later. I'm right. Listen, hook it up. This man once sent me cigars and Japanese whiskey. Charles Robinson takes care of his people.
All right. Care of his people. I can't believe you named your fantasy team Woke Mob.
Pretty good, right?
Did that change anything? Did it change?
No, not at all. It's terrible, but
All right.
Yeah.